Hi guys, and welcome to China Perspectives. My name is 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝘀𝘀, and you may know me as a German recruiter in Asia. While most of my clients tend to be in the nerdy and dirty manufacturing industry, we recently did a few bigger projects for a luxury brand that is coming to China. And this is what inspired me for today's topic that combines culture, money, aspiration, and sometimes a little bit of cringe, or as we say in German, Fremdschämen. China's luxury market, how it's growing, how it's evolving, and what foreign brands still get completely wrong. So the big question is, of course, who is buying luxury now? Well, at the moment, less people than before, to be honest. The sales of luxury goods in the first half of 2025 remains muted after last year was not so strong either. That being said, this is a moment in time, and I firmly believe this will change again with increasing consumer confidence. Because what many in the West may not know is this: China is one of the largest luxury markets globally. For 2024, the revenue was expected at $65 billion last year, with the broader luxury sector, including services and related, to reach around $316 billion. But that number doesn't even begin to tell you who these people are and how they're spending their money, because their profiles are changing too. So yes, the classic luxury hotspots still dominate. You have Beijing, you have Shanghai, Guangzhou, or Shenzhen. But from what I've seen in my work and in my travels, there's a new wave rising in second-tier cities like Nanjing, Wuhan, Kunming, and places like Zhuhai get on the map and develop a little bit like their own flavor. And luxury is not only for people in the middle years or towards the senior years. In fact, many of these new consumers are young, and they're getting into luxury through installment payments, resale platforms, or daigou sourcing. Daigou refers to organizations or people sometimes who shop abroad at cheaper prices and bring the goods, often minus the VAT, back into China. You know, when you get your VAT refund at the airport, exactly that. Some are even flipping luxury bags to fund their next purchase. But the old trend of buying everything abroad is fading. Remember, before the pandemic, in the big cities in all the world, all the Gucci, Pradas, Louis Vuittons, and so on had stores, had long lines of Chinese customers, and Chinese overseas travelers would buy not only for themselves, but also for their friends or family members at home. So this is daigou for family. I vividly remember a brunch with two of my Chinese girlfriends, both of whom had the same expensive handbag, and one bought it in Shanghai and the other one bought it in Paris. It was then mutually agreed that the Paris bag was better and gave my friend more face, aka social recognition. But to be honest, it was a debate. And the reason is that the luxury products in China often have a significant markup due to taxes or tariffs. So there's this law called the luxury good import tax, and it puts taxes somewhere between 10 to 50%, depending on the product category. And this is also why many mainlanders in the past went to Hong Kong to buy their luxury items. So this is really important for you to know if you want to bring your brand over here. But more brands are also focusing on selling locally now here, between price harmonization, better after-sales services in China. So for example, most of the really expensive watch brands now have service and repair locations here in the country. If you don't know, Chinese customers have notoriously high expectation when it comes to service. It has to be good, has to be quick, and it kind of has to be free of charge for a product, especially in this price segment. But also, we have new duty-free zones, and global brands are finally localizing their operations. We have domestic luxury consumption, and it's overtaking outbound shopping. And something else has changed drastically in the perception of Chinese versus foreign luxury brands. And this is comparatively new, and I think this is actually quite important. So foreign brands still enjoy global prestige. An Hermès bag still signals success no matter which country you're in. But Chinese luxury brands are becoming serious contenders, not just copycats, and are grabbing more and more attention. And yes, of course, Chinese brands always existed, and many of them made really excellent stuff. But no one spends that kind of money for the actual product. Its purpose is to impress others and to signal social status, right? So they can show that they can acquire items of scarcity and make them feel exclusive or maybe important. So both types of brands focus on craftsmanship and brand narrative. Both types of brand go after Gen Z and millennials, and both do limited drops and collaborations. But The differences is where it's interesting. So for example, Chinese brands lean into cultural symbolism where we see dragons, jade, ink painting, calligraphy and so on. I find it very inspiring when done tastefully and very, very beautiful. But there are also moments when I roll my eye, not so much on the inside, more on the outside, because it feels more like a costume, like a concept. As a personal choice, I also prefer to have things that not everybody else has, you know? I mean, how is it still special and signal and status with that little beautiful 𝗀𝗃 bracelet if literally half of your social circle have the same thing? I mean, you can take it off, except, wait, you can't. No judgment. Each their own, and the love message is super beautiful, and you do you, please wear whatever you want. But now we see foreign brands tending to play it quite safe, a bit safer actually, and sticking to global brand guidelines. And that's not a bad thing, and consistency does matter, especially in that segment. But it can also mean they feel a little bit stiff or almost out of touch in a fast-moving digital space. And China is a very, very, very fast-moving digital space. Another difference is that Chinese labels are more willing to experiment. They have metaverse showrooms, they have live stream drops with influencers, they have fashion lines launched via Douyin. And if you don't know, Douyin is a little bit similar to TikTok with an integrated purchase function and an average age group between somewhere 18 to 35 years old. And these local brands move fast, and I mean really fast, from idea to product in weeks. I personally am a fan of this movement. It's called Guochao, a cultural confidence in being modern and Chinese at the same time. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's really very cool. Another point is that international firms have to be aware is public opinion making by targeted reporting. Be it true or fake, there is very clearly a directed and sometimes tilted reporting against foreign brands. So there are stories about faulty products, of poor customer service, and they're being pushed across the media landscape and often have huge, huge reputation issues. It can be a little bit dramatic sometimes. So this is something that local brands also face, but at a much, much smaller scale. But of course, the target customer matters, and gender, age, and regional tastes have a huge influence. When looking at demographics, then still women lead luxury consumption, especially in beauty, fashion, and wellness. But there's also a growing male interest in watches, sneakers, fragrances, and yes, even in skincare. In fact, male skincare and beauty products are very, very interesting and hot categories right now. When I first heard about the term, it's called appearance anxiety, which was last year, I think, which was coined to get men to use cleaning and skincare products to look more attractive and have a higher chance of finding a wife, which is not easy for many men to do. Check out the video I made about the marriage industry in China. I will link it for you in the description. My first thought when I saw it was like, welcome to the club. Now both of us, we have completely unrealistic beauty expectations thanks to companies' marketing departments. But no, seriously, beauty has clear social benefits, but it says nothing about you being a good or bad person. Keep your spirits high and look deeper than a pretty face. That being said, male products are up and coming. I've seen firsthand how some male clients and male friends are more impulsive with quite high-ticket items than their female peers. And if that is your industry, be quick, quick, quick to get here before it becomes too crowded. I see many ads on the subway and so on now for male skincare. Besides the gender, regionally, the preferences are also very distinct. For example, in very, developed and modern but somewhat traditional places like Shanghai and Hangzhou and so on, there's a sense that a quiet luxury is superior and more classy. Neutral tones, minimalist tailoring, very discreet logos, no huge logo screaming on your back. And in comparison, if we look at places like Shenzhen or Guangzhou, we see more daring trend-led fashion, streetwear, bold colors, in my opinion, a little bit more experimental. And then we have places on the inner parts of China, such as Chengdu or Chongqing. And I think it's surprisingly eclectic. So there's an appetite for both traditional cultural references and avant-garde niche designers. To the untrained eyes, sometimes it's not clear what is good taste and what is bad taste, or at least to my personal untrained eye, because I sometimes get confused in the streets. But the kind of person who buys a Bottega bag in Chengdu is not the same as the one who buys the same bag in Beijing. And if you don't understand the difference as a brand, that means you're missing data to make the right marketing and branding decisions. But let's look at some of those data. China's luxury market is expected to reach more than $143 billion as said by Bain & Company, and McKinsey said that China will represent somewhere 40–45% of global luxury sales compared to 21% for America and somewhere between 16–18% for Europe. These numbers have been growing steadily at somewhere between 8–12% annually before the pandemic, but saw a decline afterwards of around 18% back to the levels of 2020. That being said, while this is a general trend, we have to wait for the numbers this year. This year is certainly one of uncertainties and headwinds also in China. Many are facing economic challenges with the global trade war, global conflicts, muted economic growth in many areas, and the geopolitical headwind we are finding ourselves in. We can also feel the effects here, and many customers in China have again increased their household savings because of an uncertain job market. And this is on top of an already high household saving rate. I actually made a separate video about how Chinese households save and invest their money in, which I'm linking for you below. Nevertheless, there's also another trend. So while there has been a noticeable downturn also in luxury products, people are sometimes consciously choosing to spend on a new bag or jewelry precisely because they currently don't want to or cannot afford to pay for a big investment like a car or something. It's called little luxury spending. And while many of the actual retail stores are closing across all product categories, by the way, not only luxury, we also have to see that over 40% of luxury spending is now online. So you have platforms like WeChat mini programs, and that's for private sales, or Tmall Luxury Pavilion for the full e-commerce experience. And of course, as mentioned, Douyin or xiaohongshu, which you may know as Red, and is like a Chinese Instagram for social commerce and influencer marketing. And these are thriving. For many consumers, luxury is not just about showing off. It's about self-reward, emotional value, and having a little something for themselves. I personally know many women who buy an expensive lipstick, not for status, but as a small ritual for themselves. This me first consumption mindset is especially strong amongst women aged somewhere 25 to 35. There's of course signaling to the outside that they can afford expensive item, even if maybe they cannot really. There's also something called face shopping. Face. It basically means shopping for social status and can absolutely mean living frugally and eating cheaply to save for several months to buy the desired item of the actual brand. With the job market being slow at the moment, I know that many senior executives have been laid off. You would assume the whole family tightens their purse strings until a new job is found, right? But interestingly, often their spouses here are less willing to dial down the money spent on status signaling, everything that's luxury-related that shows off their wealth to their network, while at the same time they are absolutely willing to spend a lot less on items that no one sees. So it's a lot about social status management. So here are some consumption trends to watch for you. First, we have Guochao and cultural revival. And this is not just nationalism, even though that plays a part. China is a very proud country with a very long history. They took a hard hit and felt humiliated in the not-so-distant history, which is often called the century of humiliation, and started in the First Opium War in 1839 and ended around 1945. So now they have developed a lot and they reached so much, and they are rightfully very, very proud of it. And a lot of this is reflected in pride about their own country's achievement and taking the place on the world stage and the world hierarchy they feel they should have. Also, the government is heavily promoting 𝗖𝗄, which translates to patriotism, I guess, but the literal translation is to love your country. And new and super interesting is the trend to resale and buy secondhand. It's a new form of status. Especially for Gen Z, it signals both access to luxury and discernment. So xiaohongshu is full of posts comparing condition and authenticity of items. People now buy luxury products secondhand, which was previously absolutely unheard of, like absolutely. Any product, if it was not new, was considered unacceptable, and so this really changed. I personally only hear about it since maybe a year or so. So the market is competitive and customers are opinionated. There are many mistakes to make, and let's look at some of them. I think the most common mistake for foreign brands are what we call cultural misfires. Dolce & Gabbana's infamous chopsticks ad, where the Chinese lady, has to eat pizza with the chopsticks. It's still the gold standard of what not to do. And then we have over-localization, or, just trying to localize but not really understanding China, and that's a hard-to-eat waste mistake. Just slapping on dragons and lanterns in the color red doesn't make you relatable. It makes you look like a tourist. Seriously, people. You know who you are. There's an important topic that is also being neglected, are digital channels. If you're not on Douyin or 𝗨𝗏， you're missing half the market. Quite literally half the market. If you don't know these channels, they are not like Instagram where you just look. These have very sophisticated purchasing platforms integrated, and you can buy directly from it. This is not only for luxury, but for any retail brand who's not using this, does not have the right marketing person at the helm, to be honest. If China is an important market to you, please look into this. In fact, let's talk about the digital and influencer ecosystem, because this is where the game is won or lost. And you need support for this. If you're a Western firm, you cannot do this from the outside of China. So hire an expert or get an external consultant who knows their stuff. This is not what your headquarter in whatever Western country you're in can design. Trust me, you'll just put yourself on the joking list. So please get a local expert. There are so many you can choose from. And finally, let's just say that Douyin is a battlefield for live streams, brand drops, and influencer collabs. On the other hand, 𝗨𝗏 is the discovery zone, reviews, styling, and side-by-side comparison. I check it before I buy almost anything, but then I do buy there. 𝗵𝗶𝗰𝗵, which is the Chinese version of YouTube, is also growing in niche segments like streetwear or youth culture, for example. And China also is really into influencers. And because everything is moving faster in China and often bigger, their sales numbers are mind-numbing. Do you know, for example, this guy called Mr. Beck's 𝗵𝗂𝘀? He has launches that sell out within minutes. And we have 𝗬𝗿𝗀𝗀. She is stylish, she is credible, and she's very plugged into her audience. And then we have 𝗺𝗃𝗃. He's dubbed the lipstick king. So yes, he's back after some public outbursts, and I think after even an investigation, so there was quite some issues going on. He became very famous because he attracted 250 million viewers in one day and sold 11.2 billion RMB on a Chinese shopping festival back in 2022. Revenue streams now include paid promotions, they include brand exclusives, they include VIP WeChat groups, and even NFT drops. And some of it works, some of it doesn't, but it's very dynamic. But luxury is faced with local competition now. The future is not about Western luxury in China. It's about luxury with Chinese DNA. And foreign brands are catching on. So for example, Hermès has done ink collaborations. Chanel hosted 𝗀𝗃 opera themes. It's not gimmicky when it's well executed. And you know what, Chinese brands, some of the really lovely ones, for example, are 𝗀𝗃, which is backed by Hermès and shows elegant Chinese minimalism. Then we have 𝗖𝗵𝗶 natural. Its materials are eco-friendly, understated design. It's inspired by Chinese Taoist philosophy, so it looks very pretty. And then Chinese firms are also buying Western brands such as 𝗁𝗏 or 𝗚𝗏𝗰. Okay, so final thoughts. Is China still just a luxury consumer market? No, I don't think so, not anymore. It's increasingly a luxury origin market. It has the people, the culture, the digital ecosystem, the money and the will, and now the brands. So if you're a foreign brand watching this, don't just adapt your Western playbook. Please study the market, listen to your audience, and understand what makes this market emotionally tech. Please get support or advice from somebody based inside China. So that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this little breakdown into China's luxury markets, then please don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment and let me know your opinions. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye, guys.